Attention higher ed leaders. Are you ready to transform your marketing and enrollment strategy? Don't miss Insights EDU, February 12th through 14th in New Orleans, the premier conference for higher education marketing and enrollment management. Spots are filling fast. Register now at insightsedu.com. Welcome to the era of the modern learner.
Let's go!
Are you going to miss Ellucian Live this year?
I don't think so.
Exactly. So you might as well register right now at elive.ellucian.com. Ellucian Live 2025, April 6th through 9th in Orlando, Florida. Do not miss it.
Do you want to get invites to special events? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes episodes, and original content? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to Ed Up on the Ed Up Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode. And I have to tell you all, when this comes out, and I've said this in a couple of the recordings we've done recently, when this comes out, we will have passed 1,000 episodes of the Ed Up Experience podcast, 1 month short of our 5-year anniversary. It's been quite the ride, as we have interviewed, like I said, 1,000 people, actually over 1,000, and over 325, probably 340 college presidents by the time this episode hits, and a lineup in the future that is incredible. And we continue to bring amazing insights to you, the audience, and frankly, to celebrate the work that we do in higher education. We're at a funny time. You all know this. I don't have to tell you anything you already know. But as the general public maybe distrusts our institutions, we got to fight back. And by fight back, I don't mean with hands. I mean with our words, with our messaging, and most importantly, with stories of student success, of staff success, of faculty success. That's the way you restore trust. And we have to bring the most innovative leaders to the microphone to tell those stories. And that's why we've been able to have so many amazing college presidents with us on this podcast. And we have another one today. I would say he's running a well-known, very well-known institution that plays on Saturdays if you watch football, and it has a lot of success in sport, a lot of student success, most importantly. And he's had a lot of success in his career, which we're going to touch on. Let's bring him in right now, ladies and gentlemen. He's General Mark Welsh. He's the president at Texas A&M University. General, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Howdy, Joe. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
First of all, thank you for your service to this country. If I look back at your background, wow, A. B, trip and fall into college presidency, into academia after your time in the service. But if you could, just give us a quick background. You have a very decorated past, and I think that sets up what you do now and why you're so passionate about it. So if you give us just a little bit of background.
Sure thing, Joe. I grew up in an Air Force family. My dad was in the Air Force for 35 years and was one of that great generation that fought in 3 wars. I had the best parents, the best brothers and sisters, the best family environment you can imagine growing up. I loved every minute of it. I grew up wanting to be my dad. So I went into the Air Force after I finished school, became a pilot, and did that for 40 years, basically. Did everything from flying airplanes to working in the intelligence community, to doing training, to doing budgeting and programming. Worked in the interagency some, worked in the joint world with the other services, and then eventually retired in 2016 and came to Texas A&M and was absolutely privileged to become the dean of the Bush School of Government and Public Service. And our namesake, George H.W. Bush, had always been a hero of mine. I didn't know him, but I certainly knew of him and admired the way he had led our country as commander-in-chief. And he had a college named after him whose whole goal was to prepare people to go into public service. And I happen to believe in public service, and I felt anything I could do to help young men and women get ready for that would be a great thing to do after leaving the military, and it was. And for 7 years, it was a joy going to work every day. And then now I have the opportunity to lead this incredible university, even though I have no idea what I'm doing.
We'll talk about that, I promise you. But I think you're being just a tad humble on your background. And I want to just read something. You were the 20th Chief of Staff of the Air Force, serving as the senior uniformed Air Force officer responsible for the organization, training, and equipping of 664,000 active duty Air National Guard, Air Force Reserve, and civilian forces serving the United States and overseas. 664,000 people that you're kind of overseeing operations for. If there was anything to prepare you for higher education, it's that. Right. I mean, it's the scope. It's maybe the inconsistency of operation that you need to bring consistency to, and the urgency of accuracy and efficiency and process. We have a lot of those things in higher ed, just in a different way. Can you talk about the bridge? What do you bring from your background? What applies, and maybe where you go, whoa, this is a little bit different than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think it's a real double-edged sword, having an experience in a different enterprise than coming into higher education. On the plus side, I have no preconceived notions. I'm not intimidated by scale of things.
Obviously,
that's not something I've already screwed up plenty of times. I know how to mess that up. And I know how to recover from most of the situations I can get myself in. I'm not intimidated by the politics of it. There are lots of politics involved with being a member of the Joint Chiefs or a service chief in the U.S. Department of Defense. And so none of that is intimidating. And I think I have some experience in those areas that is helpful. On the flip side, nothing is intuitive in this new enterprise. Even now, 9 years in, every day I'm still surprised by something. Whereas if you would walk into a room or into a classroom or into an administrative meeting, you would just feel something's not right. I don't, and I require great people around me to kind of help point me in the right direction and help me with solutions. Luckily, we have thousands of those great people here at Texas A&M. And so it really is a mixed bag of things. And on the downside, your faculty, your administrative staff are the ones who bear the brunt of that a little bit and have to pick up the load. They've been phenomenal about that here, and very accepting of my shortfalls. And on the plus side, I think there's some things I can bring to organizational management, to large scale structures and processes that maybe can help the university, because essentially our university is a $3 billion a year business. And the Air Force was a $180 billion a year business. And at the corporate level, you have to manage it that way if you're going to make sure things are on track for the long run. And that's not a popular language inside education all the time, but it's just a fact. We don't want our professors thinking that way in the classroom every day. But let me tell you what I brought with me that was exactly the same, and that's that the people are phenomenal. Those 660-some thousand airmen were awesome airmen.
Yeah.
They were just great Americans trying to do the right thing every day. And we have the same thing here at the university. This is essentially a 100,000 person city with about 80,000 of them being students, roughly 9,000 faculty, and about another 10 or 11,000 staff and contractors on campus. And all of them are committed to helping our students prepare to go chase their dreams. And they're phenomenal people. That is exactly the same.
Epic.
So you talked about scope just a little bit. Review that with us one more time. You're talking about 100,000 people. I mean, so really small city. So give us the scope of Texas A&M. Let's just assume for a moment that there's somebody listening to this that goes, Texas A&M, I've never heard of that university before, although that's probably not true. How would you describe this small city to somebody who hasn't heard it?
Well, first of all, it's I've always seen it as a shining city on a hill. My father was an Aggie, and that's how he saw it. It was responsible for everything good in his life. So the first time I came here with him when I was 6 years old, that's how I saw it. And over the years, as 5 of my 6 siblings and all 4 of our children, and now 2 of our grandchildren have attended Texas A&M, it's just gotten bigger and shinier to me, because it made them better people, better citizens, better husbands and fathers, better friends, better community members, because this place reinforces values. That's the first thing people should understand. It's about corny things. It's about pride and patriotism and faith and family and loyalty and respect and honor. and integrity, those corny things that really matter to each of us, but nobody really talks about. We talk about them all the time here. A&M is about tradition and legacy and history and pride and all the things that I love. And so it's always been a great place for me. It's also about a phenomenal education. We have 80,000 students on campus right now, between grad and undergrad. It's not starting to slow down much. We're going to have to pause a little bit. We have some capacity issues on campus because of the rapid growth, and we're dealing with those right now. That's kind of a big focus area for us. But we had 90,000 applications for the fall 24 semester. So the demand signal hasn't gone anywhere. And so I would start by thinking of Texas A&M as the place your kids and your grandkids are going to want to come to school.
Amazing.
You know, somebody out there is going, I get what you're saying, Mark. But a college degree, I'm just hearing all these bad things about it. You know, you're not getting value. College degree isn't what it used to be. There's alternative pathways. You know, there is a lot of noise out there, especially in social media. I mean, you know, I've said it on this podcast a bunch of times, and I follow certain messages on social media because I bring them into the podcast and I use them to inform my questions. But there is this meme, right? This picture of Elon Musk, who is down there in the state these days and doing a lot more than that. But he's got like a Superman outfit on and he's, you know, flexing, and it says you can learn more on these 4 websites than you can with a college degree. And it lists these websites, and it just, you just wonder who reads that and goes, yeah, I believe this. But it's happening. This public trust isn't what it used to be. And you have such passion around Texas A&M and your family and the legacy. When you hear that, how do we tackle that as an industry?
Let me give you a different perspective than someone from education. Let me go back to my military experience. The United States Air Force runs the largest community college in the world. 100,000+ degrees a year.
Yep.
And so I have watched an entire community of people for 40 years literally change right before my eyes because of education. In order to get promoted past a certain rank in the enlisted force, you had to complete an associate degree. To make rank in the officer force beyond a certain level, you had to complete a master's degree. And when that started, the Air Force changed. Everything became possible. Solutions became easier. Technology became a better tool. People wanted more as soon as they got some. So many of our enlisted force now finishes that associate's degree, and they roll all those credits right over into the beginning of a bachelor's degree. So they leave the military, if they leave or they stay in the military with a higher level of education and are better prepared for their next step in life, whether that's in the same profession or starting a new one. It fundamentally changed the Air Force. I've seen it. I don't have to wonder whether it works. I know it works. The same thing happens at universities and colleges around the country. Lives are changed. Why are 90,000 people applying to come to this university this fall? Because there's something magic about the product that they receive here. It's not just a diploma. It's also a life experience, I believe. It's also a community they become part of that's greater than themselves. And it's a network they tie into that they'll be part of for life. All those things are still seen as a good thing by many, many, many people. And we got 80,000 of them sitting right here around me every day. So I know this works. I don't think brick and mortar universities are going anywhere. I just don't think that message is true. There are some people who will completely take advantage of the fact that education is changing. Whether it's presented inside a university construct and there's a diploma at the end of it, or whether it's presented online on the 4 websites that Mr. Musk points out to us, and there is a certificate attached to it of completion that helps you get a job, it's still education. Right. And the question for all of us in the business isn't will education be important? It's how do we provide it in the best way for the people who need it? And you know better than I do, Joe, because of your experience in this field, that the education is changing dramatically. There's much more demand for online learning. There's much more demand for burst learning, for technology refresh, for workforce refresh, as different workforces actually are phased out of the job markets. all those things are things that colleges, universities, community colleges can provide alongside those websites, most of which are fed by research and data developed by great faculty members at some level.
Yeah, so somebody that has an education somewhere that built something.
Exactly right.
But I do find, and you probably see the same, that there's a dilution of the value of a college degree when we see it directly tied to an ROI with nothing else around it. Because what we'll do is, and I say this, I guess I have to consider myself part of the media these days because I do so much of this, but if you tie a college degree directly to an ROI in the first job, which is the way it's tracked, like your first job out of college, most people, their first job out of college isn't the job they're going to have 15, 20 years for most, right? It's the fifth job. And the fifth job has a much different ROI than the first job. But we dilute that value by not including, to your point, those corny things that really matter, like critical thinking that allow you to move from the job 3 to job 4, or leadership, which somehow it was lost in the messaging around AI and has become even more important than it used to be, or maybe it never really was less important. It's just more prominent now because we have to lead AI. We can't allow it to lead us. But do you think there's a lack of, lack of understanding around the ancillary benefits of a college degree beyond the ROI because it's too simple? ROI is too simple. There's other stuff that we get from college.
Yeah. I think if you look at, as somebody new to the business, I took a look when I first got here as a new dean at ranking systems, for example, and how do we measure ourselves, and how does the rest of the world measure us in terms of success or failure as an academic institution? One of the things, so I pay attention when the rankings change, not the ranking numbers, but the actual ranking process. I love the new Wall Street Journal ranking system because it's actually focused on something that's meaningful to our students. Graduation rates and how quickly do you get hired, and what is your starting salary, and how quickly do you advance in your early career. What I love about it most for us is we are a very blue collar, practically based community here at A&M. It's about helping the state of Texas predominantly, is how the university started. We're a land-grant university like so many others. And so the idea is help Texans get prepared to go do the things they think will most benefit their communities. So when we come out as the #1 school in the state in the Wall Street Journal rankings, because of the success our former students are enjoying, as soon as they walk out the door, we feel good about what we're doing here. When you add that to the fact that we're the #1 public university for CEOs in the Fortune 500 and tied for #1 overall, and we've been on that list forever, something that we're doing here is translating not just into getting hired, but into continuing excellent performance. That's what I think educational institutions ought to look for, which is exactly what you just described. What are those things beyond pure ROI that indicate success over time? And I think you have to put a couple of things together to paint that picture for yourself. But if the picture's not a good one, you probably need to adjust.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
I want to know about your transition a little bit. Military to dean, you've done a lot within higher education, and college presidency comes up. And you think to yourself, oh, I don't know what you think to yourself. You think to yourself, this is a dream come true because I've had such legacy here at Texas A&M. You think, boy, that job looks really easy. I'm going to step into that one. No problem. Probably not. You probably didn't think that. You probably thought, wow, what a different type of challenge this might be. Talk about how you thought about this, because this, in terms of a college presidency in the United States is a big job. A college presidency of 80,000 and the number of institutions or stakeholders you serve versus an institution with 800 students. Obviously, there's this scale difference. So this is a big gig, as it were, when it comes to economic impact and governmental impact, so on. How did you think about this, and what sparked you to go? I got to go get it.
Well, the fact is that I didn't really do that. I was asked to be the interim.
Yep.
when we had a sudden turnover here, and I agreed to do that. And then I was asked if I would be interested in being the permanent, and which was a surprise to me. I was not expecting that.
So you thought I'll do interim, and then I'm going to go back into my current role, and
go back and be the dean of the Bush School, which I really did love. It was a great job and a great place. I do love this university. And the bottom line for me was that I thought I could help. I thought I was able to do the job in a way that might stabilize things a little bit. It was a little bit of turmoil at the time. And there was quite a bit of friction. There was a lot of emotion involved in what was happening. And I have dealt with that kind of thing before in large organizations, and I just felt like I could help. And I know that sounds a little silly, but that's just how I felt. And I know I'm not the only college president who feels that way, or university president. And so that was the objective. I've learned a ton. I was not ready to be university president, Joe. I really was not. I didn't feel like I was qualified. But I think loving a place goes a long way. I think being incredibly proud of the people who are in the place goes a longer way. And I think being able to step back from the melee a little bit and recognize good and bad is really important. And I've always felt I had that capability. And let me tell you, the good outweighs the bad by 10,000 times. Sometimes we just get too close to it all, and all we see is the bad swirling around us. But there are 10,000 great things happening on this campus every single day. And it's the same is true of other large universities and smaller colleges. There is just greatness all around us. Great thought, great people, great initiatives, great research, solutions that are going to make the world a greater place. It's all here. We just got to step back sometimes and let all the other stuff, swirl away so we can focus on it. And I think for me, it's about keeping the focus on those things. The other stuff we'll deal with, but the focus needs to be on the things that really matter, which is getting these students ready to go change our world in a better way.
Outstanding.
I think you're right. They talk about that with reviews too, right? If you see 10 reviews, one's going to be negative, 9 are positive, but the only one you think about is the one negative. You really have to step back. You have to look at all of the impact that you and a university are having on the world around you. The day-to-day can get to you, and it gets to a lot of people. And, the college presidency pipeline has dried up. Not dried up, but it's lessened as people, this role is very prominent. Let me just ask you this before we jump to a new topic, but your interim, because this is a fascinating part of leadership in higher ed. When you become interim as a college and university president, you are expecting, to your point, that it's possible or maybe likely that you'll go back to the job that you had, not go back, but go do what you were doing before, and that you were a stabilizing force for a short period of time until the university fills a job. But you still have to make decisions. You have to make consequential, impactful decisions that affect staff, faculty, students in that interim role. Did you have to reset yourself when you said, okay, day one, I'm the college president, I've got to do things differently than I was before? Was it just a continuation of decisions that you had already made because they had to be made? How did that mindset shift or not when you made that transition?
I think that depends completely on the reason you made the transition. So for me, it was stepping back and saying, okay, why am I the interim? Is it really because of anything I did? No, probably not. But somebody sees me as capable. So I'm stepping into a role, but why is the role even open? Is it a normal transition? And things have been going great. So is my job to keep things on track while we search for the successor and make sure that everything stays on the tracks during that interim time period? Or is it that there is a bunch of turmoil? There's been an unexpected change. Things are not going so well. And then my job, I think, when I step into that is to try and calm the waters, to try and move out of that place into a place that the new president will be proud to step into the leadership role for. I don't think you can, in that environment, not do anything. I think the job of the interim at that point is to try and fix things. You don't have to build your 40-year strategic plan, but you should step in and try and put things on track for the future as well as you possibly can. And it starts with figuring out why is there turmoil to start with, which is what we did here. And I'm not smart enough to do that, but we are. And so that's where you really have to get into this idea of shared governance, which interestingly is the way I've always tried to do business, even in uniform. People are surprised by that when I tell them, but try walking into a room full of Army Rangers or Navy SEALs or Air Force fighter pilots and just tell them how they're going to die tomorrow. Yikes. And see how that goes for you.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
No, shared governance is the same everywhere. It's the right of everybody in your organization, each of whom is critically important to what you're trying to do, to have a voice in that effort. They know they don't get to make every decision, but they have to be part of the discussion leading to the decisions. And so here, for me as the university president, as the interim president, to understand what needed to be done, I needed to ask my faculty, my staff, our students, how do they see what's going on here? What are the right solutions? And that's where we spend all our time. So to me, the university president is actually, and I mean this sincerely, the least important person on a campus. It is all about enabling other people to make contributions that improve the environment to work, learn, and get ready for the future. And we have so many phenomenal people here who are capable of contributing to that it's more about being the orchestra of the communications band than anything else. And then making the decisions that need to be made to prioritize things. There's nothing magic about that. There's nothing cosmic in it. It's just a matter of paying attention, listening, and then doing what you think is right for the institution. And then living with the consequences, which sometimes are not always good.
Not always good, but there's always consequences, whether they're positive or negative, and that's what you live with when you make decisions. By the way, just a couple shout outs to staff and people that I've come across from your cabinet. I believe Ethan Braden, who does your chief communications officer, Robert Addier, who I interviewed on this podcast years ago. I don't even know how long ago it was, but he's an awesome dude, and you do have great people around you and some of that I do know, and that is necessary when you're leading, and not even when you're leading, but when you have students, you have a real impact that you're making on somebody's life, and their ability to get ahead and their ability to have a future. So now you step in, you're president of Texas A&M University. You're coming up on your year anniversary, aren't you? Let's see, December 12th? Make a year?
Pretty quick here.
So another week. When you step into this role and you say, okay, Texas A&M, what am I going to do? Where's the university going? How do we set this vision for the future? How do we, do I need a new plan? Do I go off the old plan? So you talked about setting priorities. And I think that's going to be one of the first things that you have to do is like, where does my attention need to go? And what does the university need to do to better serve students in the future, which is your ultimate goal, right?
Now listen up.
Insights EDU 2025 is almost here. Join us February 12th through 14th in New Orleans for the most anticipated higher education marketing and enrollment management event of the year.
I like that.
Imagine 3 action-packed days filled with game-changing insights, real-world case studies, and a hands-on workshop designed to transform your marketing strategy and boost your program enrollment. Learn from speakers at Google, Meta, Reddit, MIQ Digital, and top schools across the nation. Network with industry leaders, exchange ideas, and discover the tools to drive real results. This is your opportunity to stay ahead of the competition and meet the demands of today's modern learners. Don't wait, spots are filling fast. Mark your calendar, rally your team, and head to insightsedu.com to register now. The era of the modern learner is here, and you need to be part of it. We'll see you in New Orleans. At Lucian Live 2025, we're going to explore the magic of innovation. We want to imagine, believe, and achieve. It's happening April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida, and we're going to explore technology, modernization, and
artificial intelligence.
Explore the latest technology solutions, discover industry insights, and make valuable connections as a global community. It's time to register for Ellucian Live 2025 at elive.ellucian.com.
Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what do you do
right.
first?
First thing we did is first thing was actually take a real honest look in the mirror, and we did that when I first became interim for about 6 months. And we called it the quick look assessment, but we looked at everything that was frustrating people, essentially. We'd made some major changes here over the previous 2 years, the 2 years previous to that time, that had caused a lot of the frustration and turmoil. And we went back and looked at all of the changes and said, okay, which of these are on track? Which ones do we continue? Which ones are sort of on track but need some adjustment, either more resources or different scale, smaller or larger, or a slight course correction, and which one should we just stop doing? Because they might have sounded cool 2 years ago, but now that we've looked at them, they're not the right thing to do. We stress the idea that great organizations change constantly. You can't be static. The stuff that made us great for the last 15 years is not going to make us great for the next 15 necessarily. Some of it will, but all of it will not. And so we just took an honest look in the mirror, and that involved literally 150 or so different sessions with members of the faculty, staff, and students gathering their inputs, putting together a report, letting them see the report and comment on it. We got thousands of comments back from the online posting of that, and then made a bunch of decisions based on it. And I outbriefed it to the university last November, and we moved out on those things. Since then, we have been working on a couple of science projects that popped out of that review, things that we really needed to go take a more detailed look at. One of them was a capacity study, for example. When you grow to 80,000 students and you do it relatively quickly, you create some stress on your installation, on your faculty to student ratios, on your staff to faculty ratios, all those things that is significant.
Even on auxiliary services and service, right? I mean, just everything.
Absolutely. Dormitories, dining facilities, parking, everything. And we had outgrown all of it. And so we did a capacity study that we have now finalized. In fact, I'm going to walk into our university cabinet meeting when we're done this morning, and we're going to talk for an hour and a half about the recommendations that came out of that study, which ones I think it's time to move forward with, and how we're going to afford it, what we'll adjust first, et cetera. So we did that. We also looked at a student experience study, because student experience is also impacted dramatically by that kind of growth. Mm-hmm. The most exciting thing about the whole effort, Joe, was that our students basically think we have a great student experience. And the comments that they made were more about how do academically we get more out of this experience. We got to improve technology in classrooms because our professors are better than the classrooms are. It was those kind of comments. I want more face-to-face time with my professors. I want to do more research. I was surprised. I don't know why, but I was surprised by the focus of their comments, but really pleased by them. And so we've been doing those kind of things for the last 6 months. We now have the results of those studies, and we're about to make the decisions that go with those. And the next step is to start in January building our next 20-year plan. So we can roll all these things into that and put together a realistic plan that includes big questions for us, like how big are we going to be? We're going to probably take about a 5-year pause here in undergraduate growth while we start working on fixing some of that infrastructure stuff that we've just outgrown. We don't want to have more 200 and 300 and 400 person classrooms. We don't want more parking problems and more, fewer and fewer students living on campus. We want to fix those things now. And after we've done that, then we have to decide how big do we need to be to best serve the state of Texas. We've been bringing 4% of Texas high school graduates into this university for the last 30 years, every year, within 0.1 or 0.2 of 4%. To do that, we need to continue growing if that's what the state wants us to do. But once we've balanced things, kind of right-sized the institution, we can then have a very clear picture of what it will take to grow in a balanced way if we go forward. During that time, we'll grow graduate programs, we'll grow online programs. We're not going to slow down overall growth. We're not going to slow down spreading our education more widely. We're also looking at an academic roadmap. How do we adjust to this changing landscape of education? What things do we start to change? Do we do more certificates? Do we do more professional development stuff? We need to have those conversations. What is our research identity as we move forward? We spend almost $1.3 billion a year in research expenditures. It's a phenomenal research enterprise. And we have phenomenal research faculty. But what do we do going forward to best support them, to best resource them, to best provide them facilities, to best support the state, because that's our mission? All those questions have to be answered now so we can roll them into this 20-year plan. So it's an exciting time. It's a great time.
Those are great discussions. And one of the, I think, most important pieces around a discussion like that, too, is, a university tends to try to be all things to all people. So what can you stop doing? Because we do a lot of initiatives that go forward, and then the next thing you know, you've got 30 things running at once. What are we going to stop doing so that we can take these resources and do what we really need to do? Those are tough decisions, too, because people get tied to projects or initiatives, and sometimes it's not that it's not working, but it's that those resources need to go here because you have to expand infrastructure. If you're going to get to 100,000, that time, energy, and financial finances have to go to this initiative versus this. That's a tough thing too, isn't it? Like, what are we going to stop doing so that we can put our resources here? Yeah.
One of the things, maybe the thing I love most about our faculty, and I really am just an unabashed fan of faculty, is their passion for what they do, and for the way they teach and the way they do research, and the motivation behind it. Sometimes it's just to gain knowledge. Sometimes it's to improve the basic science foundational understanding of the universe. Sometimes just to help an individual student. It's different a little bit for every one of them, but all of them are passionate about this. That does create a little bit of a problem in a university, because the things they build, whether it's a degree program, a minor, a certificate, whatever it might be, it's the fruit of their labor, and they measure their success against it. And so if you start talking about what isn't going to make us great for the next 10 or 15 years and have a really honest discussion, some of those things should fade into the background, and we should adjust 30 degrees to the right and put a new program that will draw student attention and will have more of a dynamic demand signal to it than the one that started 15 years ago that was really important back then but has tapered off.
Right.
It's seen as an insult almost by a faculty member if you talk about diminishing their program in any way. It's an interesting difference between the military and education. The incentives are very different. All the incentives in the military lifestyle are for the team, all of them. The individual matters only in the way that they contribute to the team. We focus on the individual to help them contribute more to the team.
Right.
In a tenured faculty system especially, the incentives are off of the individual. That's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It's just a fact. And so how we incentivize people to make these changes is going to be key to whether we succeed or not. And that's a big discussion topic for us right now, because we can't just keep adding money. We just can't keep adding faculty. It will not work. We've been trying that. It's not working now.
Right.
So we have got to figure out exactly what you said, Joe. How do we stop doing some things? If nothing else, if we want to look at ourselves as a successful enterprise that has a business base to it, you have to have the focus in a successful business to focus on those things that will make you productive, successful, efficient, and effective in the future. And you've got to be accountable for those ideas. And you've got to be accountable for those product lines that when they are no longer successful, you terminate them.
That's right.
And you shift resources to the new, more successful ones. It's a mindset. It's a culture change. But we're talking about that a lot here, too.
It is interesting that you say that. No one's put it like that before to me, on the team versus the individual. But you're right. If, the change management in higher ed comes down to, well, what's going to happen to my job if this goes away?
Yeah.
And if it's all team based, it's okay, if this is diminishing, but the team is moving over here, I have less impact because I'm going to still be contributing in this way. So we're always, and I study this change management piece with talking to great leaders like yourself and all the work that I'm doing on the side. And it's like, that's what it literally comes down to, is if this program is going to be diminished, then I won't have a job here anymore. And if I personally am going to lose my job, I'm going to fight this tooth and nail to the end, whether I believe in this program or not. And it is interesting that if it was team-based, how that would probably go away. But boy, you're talking about a massive shift in how education works, which we know inertia lives strong within higher education. And it's sometimes hard to overcome, and shared governance as positive an experience it can be, also can be, consensus is the enemy of innovation. There's a balance that has to be struck. Technology is rearing its head. It's forcing all of us to say, okay, where are we going to live in this new world? Do we adopt? Do we not? Do we fight? What do we do? How do you think about the new world, artificial intelligence, from your perspective as the president, but Texas A&M's look on artificial intelligence, technology of the future, and how you position the university?
Kind of the way I looked at the calculator. I come from slide rule classes. I went to school a while ago, and literally still have my slide rule. And when the calculator first came out, you remember there was this huge debate about, we can't quit teaching long division. And I remember my kids looking at me going, why? Now I got this calculator. I'm always going to have a calculator. And then we got computers. They went, now I got a calculator and a computer. And now they got a calculator, a computer, a watch, a phone. I mean, do they really need to understand how to do long division? Well, yeah, I think if you're a purist, you want to make sure they do, because it's the root of all knowledge. But in reality, how many people use it once they leave school? And so while we may teach something, it's no longer the focus of the overall education. And so I think AI is the same. Acting like AI is not going to be omnipresent in our world is just silly.
Yeah.
I can't imagine professionally a report of any type that won't be AI generated in the future. It might be because it has to be edited. We're going to have to shape it, but I just can't imagine throwing away the time savings that are available through a Chat GPT-ish program generated through AI that people aren't going to take advantage of. More than anything else, time is money.
That's right.
In our world, and it's or currency of whatever type you are concerned about. It gives you more time with your family. It gives you more free time. It gives you more time to run if you're a runner, to play golf or whatever. So people are going to use this stuff, and it's going to be everywhere. So figuring out where we use it to the greatest effect is going to be important. There's also another component of it in education, because we are going to be preparing people to be the AI masters of the future.
Exactly.
So we do everything from how do you use AI in just your life going forward, which back when the calculator first showed up would be like talking about, okay, I know you don't know about it yet, but you're going to have a phone that does all this and does all these other things. And let me teach you how you're going to be able to use that phone. That's how we ought to be thinking about AI right now. And at the other end of the spectrum, we're talking about building AI machines, maintaining an AI infrastructure, creating entirely new algorithms that allow AI to do things beyond what we can imagine right now that it can do. And we have people with the mental capacity and the drive to figure all that out. And that's where we can lead the nation and the world in this.
That's what
we ought to be thinking.
By the way, not to change subject, but one of the first lessons I learned in my time in higher ed was, you were talking about student experience. If there isn't enough parking, nothing else is going to go right for the student.
That's exactly right.
Right. If parking is a problem, they can't see past it. Nothing else matters. At park, you have to have enough parking. And that's just one of the things that is just, if you can't park, then the rest of your day is blown to bits and nothing goes right. Isn't that true? Right? It really is.
Well, it's that, and I can't get food at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
If the dining facility is not open between 2 and 5, my world is ending.
Yes.
But those are the two big things. You're right.
How big of a shock or maybe not were athletics, right? Because athletics, a college president, I mean, especially Texas A&M, you're talking about major conference, big budget, lots of teams, lots of success. When you look at that expense management that exists within athletics, and I think a lot of people don't think about it in that way, like athletics, and then you get down to the Title IX pieces and the equity, and there's just a lot of bits and pieces around athletics. Was that a shock to you to walk into that and go, okay, wait a second, or expected? What was your take on athletics just generally?
Yeah, not really a shock. It's been an education because there's lots to learn about it that I didn't know. And especially with all the changes that are underway right now with court cases and NIL appeals and antitrust, cases going on. So I've actually spent an awful lot of time with the other SEC presidents and chancellors, along with our SEC, conference team, trying to figure out where we're going with all this. We're lucky being in the SEC because we have a commissioner who is very, very active and engaged in this, and a team around him who's very good at keeping us informed and just keeping us up to speed. And there's a bunch of university presidents in the SEC who are very experienced in this area and are very kind mentors for me. And so I think the most interesting thing to me is the number of people who don't understand that while athletic revenues are really high, we make a lot of money from ticket sales and other revenues around athletic events at Texas A&M. We spend all that plus some. So it's not like we are stockpiling money. We are trying to create a great fan experience for our other students and for supporters. We're trying to make sure our athletes are well cared for, they're well educated. We've got an 87% graduation rate for our collegiate athletes, for goodness sake, which is phenomenal. And so we want to raise that even more, but we need to make sure we take good care of the people who represent our university and spend a lot of time and energy doing it proudly in the right ways. But I think you mentioned the cost of this. It's significant. And as we look at revenue sharing with our athletes, which is a whole new world we're about to enter into, and the continuously changing world of NIL, and now the need, if these court settlements go through, to monitor it and actively engage in ensuring that it's being done the right way, which we have not been allowed to in the past. We are not only going to have to increase revenue, we're going to have to cut costs. We have to do both. And that's going to be a shock to some people around the country. And if you don't agree to do that, these settlements aren't going to help you, and you will leave yourself open to legislate or risk of multiple different types of lawsuits, whether it's Title IX or it's antitrust related or whatever. It's just a tough environment to operate in right now. We're lucky here because we have an athletic director, Mr. Trev Alberts, who has been here for a little less than a year now. But Trev is a phenomenal business thinker. And so he sees both a cost balance sheet as being an important thing. He focuses on revenue generation. He also focuses on cost cutting. He's having very realistic conversations with our coaches, who have also been wonderful about this. They know their world's changing. We don't want to cut sports here. We don't want to reduce the number. We are perfectly in line with Title IX right now. We want to stay there. And we like both our men and women's teams. We want to maintain them. But to do that, it's going to take a little bit of a haircut in some areas while we try and figure out how to increase revenue generation.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the complexity too, when not that you're going to cut teams, but if a university did cut a team, it puts an imbalance on the Title IX gender equity. So you either have to add teams back, or you have to subtract this sport in particular because it affects the calculation over here. So it's very nuanced. It's very regulated. And to your point, it takes a lot of attention and more in the future, which is going to increase the expense to the university. And that's just for universities, not Texas A&M University. It's Division I universities across the U.S. Are going to have to really take a hard look at how they balance the increased expense. NIL is just it creates a crazy world. And another thing to monitor when it comes to students and deal with. And there's so many things that I think can take one away from the core mission, right? When you come back to it, the goal is to get these students to graduation, no matter whether they're a student athlete, a student who's on a debate team, a student who's doing research. In the end, is to get them through, to give them a great experience. What do you see for the future of Texas A&M University? Where are you going? What do you see?
Are we still talking athletics?
We can talk about whatever you want.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's just generally.
Let me close the door on athletics and then talk about more.
There really was a poor transition to that question. I have to tell you that I got to put my podcast skills to the test here.
I thought it was incredibly subtle and well done, Joe.
Thank you.
You covered all bases. I think athletics for us is such a front door to this university. So many people see Texas A&M through an athletic lens. It's their first exposure to the university, to the brand. When they meet our athletes, they're always impressed. They're always a little surprised at how engaging they are, how intelligent they are. Our athletes are very proud of their academic performance. They're on a roll now of highest GPAs ever as a department. But
and that matters.
It matters a lot. But it's a constant battle to remind people that we have fewer than 600 intercollegiate athletes out of a student body of 80,000. So athletics is actually a very, very small percentage of the activity and operations that takes place on a large university. It's a very important percentage, but it's small. And so we can't let it impact the other side of the activity. I can't explain to a student who came here purely for education and doesn't participate in athletics why their experience was impacted because we're paying more to taking more money out of that side of the house to put it against athletics.
So right.
So athletics has got to be operated as a business unit, if you will.
Yep.
It has to be a balanced budget. And in the perfect world, it makes money and gives it to the rest of the university. That's not happening many places in the country. There are a couple, but there aren't many.
Very few from what
That's
I
right.
understand.
So we have got to realize that that's where we have the luxury of having Trev Alberts as our athletic director. He gets that, and he'll make that happen. So I tend to highlight athletics all the time and then say, okay, but that's athletics.
Right.
We can talk about student athletes, and let's focus on the student side. A number of our athletes are representatives of like the SEC or representatives to the NCAA for the SEC, which is phenomenal. They're incredible young people. They're incredibly bright. They're articulate. They're engaged. It's just fun to be around them, just like the other 80,000. And so the university itself is moving in line with its original mission from 1876. We are very proud of being a land, sea, and space grant university. There's only, I think, 24 of those in the country. And all those areas are really, really important to Texas A&M because they're important to Texas. 94% of our undergraduate students are from Texas. That's part of that land grant focus. A very large percentage of our graduate students are from outside the state. And in some programs, engineering is a good example, over 50% are international students. And so we have a great flavor here and a diversity of student background, educational backgrounds, and demographics. But undergraduate community is almost exclusively from Texas. And so where our state goes is where we go. And Texas's tech workforce has been growing by leaps and bounds for the last 15 to 20 years. We have grown the number of STEM degrees we give by 44% over the last 10 years. We've increased the number of engineering degrees by 75% over the last 10 years. That's 1 in 3 students at Texas A&M is an engineering student. There are 25,000 students in our engineering school. And so we will continue to move in the direction the state moves because that's our charter. Continue to train Texans for the state's needs. We also let people, there's a very large percentage of students here compared to most places who go into public service roles, whether it's for community government, state government, federal government, intelligence community, DOD, whatever. We still commission the largest number of military officers in every military service, except for the military academies. And so there are some specialty areas that we have been incredibly good at over time that we will continue to create pipelines in because they're needed by the communities that we serve. This idea of service is a big thing here. We are focusing really hard on not just graduating great Aggies, but graduating great citizens because we need them. The state needs them, the nation needs them, the world needs them. And we're trying to figure out ways to connect things that we already do that produce great citizens and give students credit for them. So if you're the leader in one of our 1,300 plus student organizations, maybe there's credit in that. If you're a leader of our Corps of Cadets, which is about 2,500 strong and still right at the heart of Texas A&M University, because that's where it started. They're the keepers of the tradition here, kind of the heartbeat of the place. If you're a leader in the Corps of Cadets, that should count for something. If you're one of the students who participates in community service here, and about 2/3 of our students do it routinely, then that should count for something. Is there a way to link those kind of activities and experiences with academic credit for courses that teach you how to be a leader in your community, or potentially how to run for public office in the future, or how do you manage emergency services for a city? Can you connect those in a way that gives a student elective credit by combining them? They're not new things, they're things we're already doing. And part of the effort is to incentivize faculty who do those things now to be part of this broader effort for the team to create better citizens. And their work will be part of that and highlighted as part of it. So those are the kind of things that I think universities need to be thinking through. This one has a particular focus. There are different focus areas everywhere. And things that universities are proud of and do a wonderful job of producing. And I think we can all rally around something and just realize that our role is to make our communities better places to live, work, and learn.
Well, I have to tell you, it has been an honor to interview you, sir. And I, again, thank you for your service to the country. I love the connection of, by the way, we didn't even get into military transfer credit, but I think that military experience for credit transfer is like a big deal. It's something I talk about. It's very obvious to me that you can be a leader in the U.S. military branch and you should get credit for your lived experiences. It's a no-brainer to me. That's maybe a conversation for another day. And there's some other leaders out there very passionate about that. And to your point, how do we serve the community better? I hope you had a good time on the podcast today talking with me. I really appreciate the hour that you gave me.
Joe, it's an honor to be here with you. Thanks for everything you've done in your career to advance education. You're one of the great voices in this enterprise, and thank you for continuing to use it.
Well, thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, he's my guest today. No, he is your guest today. He is General Mark Welsh. He's the president at Texas A&M University. Look for them to do great things in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just ed-upped.
You just made the list.
Mark your calendars for Insights EDU 2025, February 12th through 14th. Insights EDU 2025 is the can't-miss higher education marketing and enrollment management conference of the year. We're taking over New Orleans with speakers from Google, Meta, Reddit, MIQ Digital, and top schools across the country. Discover how AI is transforming marketing and enrollment management, how to assess online program opportunities, and meet the demands of today's modern learner. Don't wait. Spots are going quickly. Register now at insightsedu.com. Welcome to the era of the modern learner.
Let's go!
Lucian Live is taking place April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida.
You just made the list.
Get ready for an unforgettable experience at Lucian Live 2025. Join visionary leaders from institutions worldwide as we dive into groundbreaking ideas, cutting-edge solutions, and transformative best practices that will ignite your passion for innovation. This is your chance to connect, collaborate, and propel your institution into the future. Do not miss out.
Let's go!
Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe today.